Hello everyone and welcome to lesson number 4 of Football English with Wayne. In this lesson we're going to be having a look at high scoring games. If you haven't checked the previous 3 lessons, it might be a good idea to have a listen of those. It could help you with this lesson. So in today's lesson we'll be mainly focused on how to use vocabulary, a little bit of grammar and some pronunciation to sound more natural when we're talking about football games. So let's start with a quiz about high scoring games. The first question is, what is the biggest football score ever? And that can be around the world, it can be league competition, cup competition, club, international, anything. Second, what is the biggest Premier League football score? And lastly, what is the biggest World Cup football score? You can pause it if you like and have a think about it, or you can even pause and ask Google. So let's go with the first one. Now the first one, we don't have enough time to discuss in detail, but I suggest that you look it up on the internet to see what happened in this game. I think it's quite recent. It's 149-0. That's 149 goals in 90 minutes. Unbelievable. The second one, there's actually 2 games that are the biggest high scoring games. The first one is from the mid-90s, I believe, and it was Manchester United beating Ipswich 9-0. And the second one, very recently, Leicester beating Southampton away 9-0. Which is the biggest away scoring game in the Premier League. And lastly, there was 3 games that qualify for the biggest World Cup football score, and that is Hungary twice making an appearance, first beating South Korea 9-0, and also beating El Salvador 10-1, and also Yugoslavia beating Zaire 9-0. So let's take the context of Leicester City beating Southampton away 9-0, and let's have a look at some match reports from this game to focus on some natural vocabulary used when talking about high scoring games. So the first little headline that we have is Vardy and Perez hat-tricks. See, Leicester 9 against Southampton. What could that black box be? It could be score, but that doesn't really work very well to use kind of dramatic language. The missing word is smash. So in this case, it's a verb. So when a team smashes and the number of goals after, it usually means that they've scored a lot of goals. In this case, 9 goals. The second little heading is that we've got Southampton 0, Leicester 9. Ayoze Perez and Jamie Vardy score hat-tricks. Hat-trick, you probably already know, is 3 goals for one player. As Leicester go second, which means second in the league, after something away win in English top flight history. And that missing word is biggest. Biggest away win in English top flight history. And lastly, we've got Leicester City something Southampton 9-0 to go second in the Premier League. Again, in the previous lesson, we used the verb beat. So you could say Leicester City beat Southampton 9-0. But again, beat is not enough. Like 1-0 is okay. For example, if it was Arsenal 1, West Ham 0, then that's okay, beat. But we need a word that summarises that it wasn't just beat. In this case, thrash. And this is a very typical word that's often used in the UK when talking about big scoring games. Thrash. So one more time. Leicester City thrash Southampton 9-0. In my opinion, I think you can use thrash when the score is could be about 4-0, from 4. Anything above 4, you can use thrash. So 4-0 is a thrash. Some of those words, let's have a look at the meaning. So the first one we saw was top flight. Top flight is just another word for the first or top league in that country. So the top flight in England is the Premier League, and the top flight in Spain is La Liga. Top flight in France is Ligue 1. Top flight in Germany is the Bundesliga, etc. The second verb we've got is to smash or to thrash. They're quite similar, and it's just basically like I said, it's used when a team scores a lot. I think above 4, but there's no exact rule of how many goals a thrashing or smashing is. And lastly, as I said, a hat trick is when one player scores 3 goals. So let's have a look at some grammar and pronunciation now. So here we've got Leicester thrash Southampton 9-0. But if we want to use the past tense, then we just use thrashed. And that ed in blue has that t sound. For example, tiger. So Leicester thrashed Southampton 9-0. This sentence is grammatically incorrect in terms of it's not Southampton that thrashed Leicester 9-0. The score was not Southampton 9, Leicester 0. So we need to use what is often called as the passive tense. So how to do this? We can just include some more words. Southampton were thrashed by Leicester 9-0. And also we can say Southampton were thrashed at home to Leicester 9-0. Alternatively, Leicester thrashed Southampton away 9-0. Another phrase that you can use, in red we have a verb took, when using high scoring games with words like thrash. So for example, Southampton took a 9-0 thrashing from Leicester. And alternatively, Leicester gave Southampton a 9-0 thrashing. Alright, your turn now. I want to see or hear your answers to these questions. What is the biggest thrashing you have seen your team give and take? For example, my team, the biggest thrashing that I've seen my team give is probably when we beat Liverpool 6-1 at home. I think it was about 5 years ago. And the biggest thrashing I've seen my team take, I think, is probably when we lost to Manchester City 7-2 away. And in that season, I think we got relegated. Thank you very much. That's all for this lesson. I hope to see you in the next lesson where we'll be looking at how to pronounce Premier League teams, the first 10 league teams. Thank you. Goodbye.